According to a recent Google search, Robert Downey Jr. is best known for his role playing Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. But if I'm being honest, I've never even seen the movie, any of them. I'm more of a fan of his 2014 film, The Judge, but that's not why I brought him up tonight. In my opinion, Robert Downey Jr. isn't just the actor who plays Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. struggled with drug and alcohol abuse from the young age of 8 years old. One of his most well-known quotes is, "Just because you hit bottom doesn't mean you have to stay there." So, what is rock bottom? In my experience, rock bottom is the point at which an addict feels that they can no longer continue living the way they are. It's often a moment of clarity where they realize that they need help to overcome their addiction. I've hit rock bottom many times, each time worse than the last. I have this special ability, like so many other addicts, that when I hit rock bottom, I take out a shovel and I start digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. So, with that being said, let me introduce myself officially. My name is Kyle Borisewich. I'm 32 years old. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic in recovery. Today, I'm blessed to be able to say that I've been clean for 3 years, 5 months, and 13 days. Thank you. I'm a lifelong resident in Goshen. I graduated from this very high school in 2009, right on that stage. My sister and my mom are also graduates of Goshen. My grandfather was even superintendent of schools at one point. I was told that addiction runs in my family from a very early age. My dad stepped on a landmine in Vietnam and lost his leg. As a result, he became addicted to and abused opiates and alcohol. I started using drugs when I was 13 years old and will continue to use for the next 15 years, 10 of which I was heavily using almost every single day. I was what they call a garbage head because I used all sorts of drugs. If you put it in front of me, I would eat, sniff, smoke, or shoot, and then I would ask what I had just taken. That's not normal behavior, and I recognize that today. That's why this Robert Downey Jr. quote became so special to me. I've hit rock bottom many times. Rock bottom is not always just one catastrophic event that changes the course of your life or the way you think. Sometimes it's a series of events that brings you to your next bottom. My first rock bottom was in my early 20s. My good friend overdosed while shooting heroin. I had nodded out while I was on Xanax. I'd basically fallen asleep. I vividly remember his blue face and the needle still sticking out of his arm. That image is burned into my memory, and it's not something I could just forget. This experience taught me that life is precious. To experience a loss that could have possibly been prevented, and the fact that I lived and he did not, is something that I'm still working through with therapists and counselors today. My second rock bottom came about 4 years later. I was caught by my family with cocaine after a long day of partying. I went to rehab to please them. This is the easy part. I can complete a rehab with my eyes closed while walking backwards. It's really easy when you're in a safe and controlled environment. The hard part is applying what they teach in rehab to my life on the outside. While I was in there, the counselor even told my mom, "Your son is going to die if he does not stop using." I wasn't ready to accept that yet. I'd even texted my dealer on the way, telling him to be ready for me when I came home. That planted the seed in my head, and I couldn't shake the thought. I left that rehab against medical advice after 2 days, and I was home using that very night. This experience taught me that no amount of love alone from my family was going to get me clean. I needed to want to get clean for myself. About 1 year later, I hit my third rock bottom. This time, I was arrested in a neighboring town with 550 Xanax pills. I hit a parked car, and then shortly afterwards, I had the nerve to go up to the police and ask what they were doing around my car, knowing damn well what I had stashed away. That's insanity. I was charged with criminal possession of a controlled substance, criminal possession with the intent to distribute, and DWI. I was arrested and sent to jail. Afterwards, I was mandated to go to rehab by drug treatment court. It wasn't up to me anymore. At this point, I remember someone once telling me that addiction ends in one of three ways: jails, institutions, and death. I knew I had already checked two of those off, and if I didn't make a change, then death was going to be my fate. However, 6 months later, I hit a fourth rock bottom. This time, I was arrested with 330 Xanax pills, charged with DWI, and almost the same exact drug charges from my last arrest. The only difference being that I was in drug court this time. That's a big no-no. I went into the bathroom, and that's when everything changed. I had a seizure, and when I went down, I hit my head on the toilet. When I came to, I realized I had lost the ability to move my legs. I was 27 years old. I used to be an athlete, and now I was possibly paralyzed. Not being able to walk scared me during a time when I didn't fear much of anything. And guess who showed up at the hospital? It wasn't my drug dealer, and it wasn't any of the several people I've been using with over the past couple years. It was my family, and it was 5 of my closest childhood friends that showed up. I'll never forget the look on my mom's face. For the first time, I began to realize that my addiction was affecting more than just me. Little things started happening that changed my outlook on sobriety. My friend's mom was delivering Christmas cactuses to each patient. After her visit, I remember advice I was given once about trying to keep a plant alive for 1 whole year before even thinking about getting into a romantic relationship or getting a pet. I only listened to a part of this advice. Can you blame me? Although it was hard, thanks for the help, Mom, I'm glad I did. Bumpy has a lot of issues due to improper breeding. He's a handful the same way I was a handful for my family. He's even on a lot of the same non-narcotic medications that I am. For the first time, I accepted that my addiction was bigger than me, and I learned that you have to be completely willing to do whatever it takes to get and stay clean. I needed to chase my recovery the same way that I had chased my drugs. The worst day of my life now doubles as the best day of my life. That fall was traumatic, but it was exactly what I needed at that very moment in time. It was a blessing in disguise because it kept me hospitalized for 1 whole extra month, which was critical for my recovery. 1 month away from the environment I was using in was so important. With everything I went through, I learned that when you hit bottom, you are forced to either make a change or continue to make poor decisions, which will likely lead you to your next bottom. That next bottom is not always promised. I've seen death show up first far too many times. I may not be a professional actor, but I am proud to say that I made a change and turned a negative into a positive. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be alive today. I wouldn't be standing in front of you sharing my story tonight, and I wouldn't be able to say that I was able to bring my counselor and the same judge who sent me to jail to an award ceremony where I shared my story in front of 250 people. Talk about things coming full circle. Last month, I ran and completed my 3rd 50-mile ultra marathon. 3 years ago, I wasn't even sure I'd be able to walk again. I got back into coaching soccer, a passion of mine. I began writing a weekly column on mental health and recovery for our local newspaper, The Independent Republican. I got certified as a recovery coach, where I provide non-clinical support for successful changes in individuals seeking recovery. I'm in the process of becoming a credentialed alcoholism and substance abuse counselor, where I can hopefully help people who struggled like I did. I have a relationship with my family again today. I know they never stopped loving me, but they didn't like me. Today, they like and trust me. I serve on the board of directors of a local mental health nonprofit, Sean's Dream, where we bridge the gap between home and healing by providing treatment centers with basic living needs. Most importantly, I'm able to spread awareness at events like this today. If you're struggling, don't ever lose hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel should you choose to seek help. If there's one thing you take away from my story tonight, let it be this. Recovery isn't always easy, but it is worth it. Thank you.